And we're going to finish up the last, I think it's only 6 verses. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we've only got 6 verses to finish. And I didn't want to get into chapter 7. Good portion of the church is out on vacation, so we'll pick up chapter 7 next week with Lord willing, everybody here. What we've covered in chapter 6 is these the seals, and this is the first of 4 times through the tribulation, and we're coming near the end of the first round here. Seal 1 through 4 was the horsemen. The 5th seal was the martyrs of Jesus. And we're going to find out the 6th seal are a bunch of signs, and including the advent of Jesus Christ. And that brings us to the end of the first account. Heather made an observation last week that the seals are opened in heaven, but do not necessarily land on earth in the same order. And there's some truth to that. I'm also wondering if it's not, because we're talking, there's only 17 verses in this entire chapter to tell you about a 7-year period of time, or approximately 7-year period of time. And more or less the seals will just tell you it's characterized by war and famine and death and the Antichrist and martyrdom. There's probably going to be a lot of that before the Antichrist even gets here as far as war goes, and maybe even famine. I hear people are starting to starve over in China already, and other places in the world that are having a tough time economically. That's nothing new. I mean, some of the worst famines that this country or this world has ever had were produced by man. And then they starved people to death. And I will get into all that. But anyway, it may be that you're given just a snapshot, and it says it's characterized by all of these things. And it will be. And then the next time we go through it, it's going to be characterized, and some of it's going to overlap. The hardest thing about these seals and trumpets and vials is how they line up, and because you'll think, well, I'm reading about the same one here, but then there'll be one that'll be different. And it's like, okay. But it's like think of the 4 gospel accounts. They all embellish one another, okay? You could take those 4 gospel accounts and lay them one on top of the other. And because some of them, and that's one thing I wanted to bring out, and it's interesting that this follows the same pattern. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. But only Matthew and Luke go back to his birth. So you have a snapshot or a picture or a time that brings it before his ministry begins. What's interesting is that Mark and John don't. They only cover his 3.5-year ministry. So I looked at these, and maybe I looked at them sideways and maybe upside down, but no, it's possible that the seals, the first one, and the time through that deals with the Antichrist, they both talk about the Antichrist. The very first seal was the white horse rider. Okay. Then when you're talking about the one that comes through that deals directly with the Antichrist, his coming, okay? His coming is not in the middle of the week. His coming is at more or less toward the beginning of the week. So the first and the third account cover more than the second and the fourth account. The second and the fourth account just covered the 3.5 years of Great Tribulation. Now, people could argue with that, and I wouldn't allow myself to be burned at the stake for that, but it does seem that way. And it's just keep in mind when we're going through there, just think of the Gospels. How many of you have ever tried to put it together, putting the Gospels together? Yeah, I know, you're already rolling your eyes, right? You remember, is it Davies? What is it? Davies' Harmony of the Gospel? I thought that was the name of it. Yeah, we've got a couple of them. And I'm telling you, I don't know how these men did it. It's like, I'll tell you they did it. It's a puzzle. If you're good at puzzles, you can take all the pieces and just kind of put them. I watch people do puzzles. It frustrates me. I can't do a puzzle to save my life. I mean, if you say, doesn't it just relax you? No, it frustrates me to no end. I'm pulling my hair out because I can't discern one piece from another. I can't discern where they go. And I know there's a method to it, but there's some people that have an eye for it. They look at a puzzle and they just start doing this, and oh yeah, this goes over here, this goes over here. You get somebody that can do that, they might be able to put this thing together to where you can get those four to overlap, however they're going to overlap, and you'll have a timeline of how they unfold. But I can't do it. I don't know anybody that has actually done it. I mean, some things are obvious here. We know that some things fall right in the middle of the week. In the midst of the week, there's a whole list of things that happen. I got that. But there's a whole list of things, I don't know how they fall. Now, most of the judgments fall on the last 3.5 years, but where in there, I don't know. I know the people that are going to be going through it are going to know. They're going to be watching it happen. And if they're reading the book of Revelation, they're just past the halfway point, man, they got to be going, oh no. Oh, I'm telling you, it's a time you do not want to be here. Now this is something that throws me. It's always thrown me, because we get to chapter 8, verse 1, and guess what? It's the seventh seal. And it takes you back through it again. Okay, it's almost like it's being done for John's benefit, like it's a storyboard, and he's given it the seals this time, and then the seventh seal opens up the 7 trumpets, and he gives it to him again with the 7 trumpets. I wish I could explain that better, but I can't. All I know is that what he is seeing is segregated into 4 different accounts. Yet just like you have the 4 Gospels, but John is the one that's getting all of it, and he's seeing it, and he's got it, and he's recording it, and I guess it's for us to study and figure out. Let me see. All right, let's read verse 12 and verse 13. And he says, I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Now you can match this passage with 4 different passages. Of course, 3 of them are in the Gospels, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And then one of them's in the book of Acts. And I just want to read through each one of these and show you how close they match this. Turn to Matthew 24. Let's look at verse 29 and 30. I mean, almost says the same thing. It's very close. In fact, he is saying it. I mean, it's just being Revelation, reiterating it over again. But Jesus prophesied this. He said immediately, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. And the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the cloud of heaven with power and great glory. Now, we haven't actually got to the coming part, but it's in the next 4 verses. Okay, in Revelation here, it's in the next 4 verses, but I just want to read that part of the passage and show you that it precedes his coming, and this is what's going to precede his coming. Look at Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21, verse 25 to 28. Luke's giving you just the same thing, but he may give you a little bit more, a little bit less. He may word it a little bit different, but it's saying the same thing. Luke 21, verse 25, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. Same 3 things that he brought up the first time. And upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. So you've got some added thing there. There's tension between the nations, which seems to be building now. The sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see. Okay, so the powers of heaven are going to be shaken. Something's going to happen there. And it says, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. All right, so pretty much what it's saying here in verse 12 and verse 13, and then on when we read verse 14, 15, 16, and 17, you have the Advent. Look at Matthew 13, verse 24 to 26. It says, but in those days after the tribulation, so this is at the end of it, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall. And the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. All right, so 3 times in the Gospels we covered what it says right there in Revelation chapter 12. I'm sorry, Mark 13. Oh, I'm sorry. Mark 13, verse 24 to 26. All right, everybody got that squared away? I'll turn to one last passage, Acts chapter 2, verse 19 and 20. There's no doubt about these things, but you can always count on a charismatic to get it wrong. I'm sorry, verse 19 and 20. Actually, I might read a little bit more than that. Let's see. What throws them is verse 16. They've just witnessed the disciples, the apostles, speaking in tongues. And Peter is preaching to them, and he's preaching among them, or to the men of Judea and Jerusalem. And in verse 16, he says, but this is that which is spoken by the prophet Joel. And here's where the confusion comes in. Nothing that happened in this chapter is in Joel. And nothing in Joel is in this chapter. What he's saying is he's just making a statement. This is that which is spoken by the prophet Joel. And then he gives it to you. It's just the way it's worded. And like I said, God words things to catch people up. He really does. Because it happens too many times to be an accident. It's just like the Bible is booby-trapped. It just is. And the reason you know that, just by go read Joel and then read this and say, well, none of the things that are in Joel happened here. Okay? And it says, verse 17, it shall come to pass in the last days. Well, this doesn't end up being the last days, although it could have been. That's hard for people to understand. You say, how could it have been the last days? Well, he's offering Israel another chance to accept their Messiah, isn't he? If they accept, they're within 7 years of the Advent. Now, the Lord knows they're not going to. The Lord knows they're not going to, but the offer is there. Okay? And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith God, I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. He didn't do that here. Now, there were some people there that he did pour out his Spirit upon, but he didn't pour it out on all flesh. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. I don't see them there. And your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. I don't think that's here in Acts 2. They just spoke in tongues. And on my servants and on my handmaidens I'll pour out in those days of my Spirit, and they shall prophesy. I don't think there's any of that going on. What I'm getting at is he's talking about a different time frame. We acknowledge something has happened on the day of Pentecost. One Pentecost. Verse 19, and I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath. Well, none of that's going on. blood and fire and vapor of smoke. Nope. And the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood. Now, you know, in 2 times have we seen this where the moon turns, it said turn into blood, and then 2 times where it says the moon shall not give her light. How many of you remember the last? You see, a blood moon is an eclipse moon, and she is not giving her light. She has been darkened. Okay, so Bible's consistent. It says, before that great and notable day of the Lord come, and it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So you have, what you have in Acts 2 is the same thing that Jesus Christ prophesied about, the same thing that we find in the book of Revelation, this 6th seal of these things happening. Acts 2, what's happening in Acts 2, or what's preached about, didn't happen at Calvary, didn't even happen at Pentecost, didn't happen in 70 AD, didn't happen with Antiochus Epiphanes in 168 BC, and it's not going to happen at the rapture of the church. It's going to happen just before the second advent. And the reason I mention all those is because you'll find some group that'll try to put those things and place them into those different times. Some at 70 AD, some with Antiochus Epiphanes when he offered a pig on the altar December 25th and whatever year it was, 168 BC or something like that, yeah. And they tried, but it is, did Jesus Christ come? No, it didn't happen. There may be a picture of it, might be a type of it, might be a preview of it, but if he didn't come, because that's what every one of them said, before his coming, before his coming, before his coming. And some of them will try to say it's Pentecost, but nothing happened like that at Pentecost. Because the Holy Spirit came, they said, well, that's Christ. He's in the person of the Holy Spirit. Well, it's true in the sense that he's living in us in the person of the Holy Spirit. But that's not the second coming of Jesus Christ. That's spiritualizing the thing when you don't need to spiritualize it. So, this is great tribulation, at the end of great tribulation, when you have the second coming. All right, 2 things that are mentioned in there I want to mention is first the earthquake. You know, Jesus said that, I believe it's in Matthew 24, there'd be earthquake in divers places. We get the word diverse. When I first read that, you know, being a young Christian, I thought he was talking about underwater somewhere in divers places. But it's diverse places is what it is, different. And we're seeing that to some degree. We would see something that's a picture of that or a sign of that. We see earthquakes happening in places that we don't normally see it. We're having rumblings even here in Ohio. Over the last month or so, we've had a couple small earthquakes. There's been some definite rumblings on the New Madrid Fault. And if that one goes, you'll know it. You'll know it. It'll shake it all the way to New York. And it made the Mississippi, when it did happen back in the 1800s, it made the Mississippi run backwards for like 4 or 5 hours. And you can't imagine making a river run backwards, but it did. Changed the topography of that entire area too. And they're having rumblings there. They're having rumblings in Yellowstone. Yellowstone just has them all the time, but they seem to be intensifying with how many they're having. Thousands. And if one of them goes, I mean, you know what? God doesn't need to have a war. He doesn't need to sink our country with financial instability. He just have one volcano go off, just one. One super volcano, Yellowstone. I think we got 2 in the United States. I can't even know what the other one is, but I do know about Yellowstone. The caldera of that thing, how huge it is it's just huge because it's an entire area. I don't know how many square miles it is, but if it went off, it would put 6 feet of ash for 200 miles. And then you just keep dropping that level down. I mean, it would cover 2/3 of the United States and probably usher us into some type of nuclear winter. It'd block the sun out. The economy would collapse almost instantaneously. And because the breadbasket's in the center of the country, guess who's going to starve on the outskirts of the country? That's just one. Could God do that? He's done it before. He did it to Pompeii. So God doesn't need man, although he can let man fix his own wagon. He really can. We're close to doing it. We really are. I just stand back and I'm just like gritting my teeth. Because I'm like, what they're doing is just almost suicidal, but I'm like you, man. I'm praying for the best. Don't know. But let's look at Revelation 16. I want to talk about this earthquake because there's one particular, I said all that to say this, there's one particular earthquake that is exceptionally devastating. And in Revelation 16, it describes it. I think this is it. Revelation 16, look at verse 18 and 19. It says, and there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. Well, that means it's probably going to be over a 10, because I think we've had 9s. 7s are big. And with earthquakes, the thing about earthquakes is it matters about the depth of them. If they're real deep, you may not even feel some of them. But if they're closer to the surface, man, you'll feel it. So this is so great an earthquake, there's never been one like it on the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. It says, and the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. Just before the Advent, every major city on this planet is going to collapse. Every city on the planet, major city. Because it says the cities of the nations. Well, it might be all the cities. Can you imagine? Even the places that are building buildings to withstand earthquakes, I don't think they can handle a 10. I think they can handle an 8, maybe even a 9. But I don't think we'd build anything that can withstand a 10. I mean, if a 10 would probably throw you across the room. It'd be so violent. And it says the cities of the nations fell. This is just before the Advent. You can imagine. No, I can't imagine that. When you think of all the cities, and I haven't been anywhere. Some of you have been to a lot of places. Can you imagine all those cities just falling down? China won't even need this one. I'll tell you, I actually feel for the Chinese. I do. I watched something the other day about China. They're really in bad shape. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. They do. But I still feel for them. The way that they've got all these cities that they built, and they just threw them up, man. They look great. You look at them like, wow. Man, they built that thing in a couple years. But the workmanship is so shoddy. They're finding these construction crews that come from China that have been working in other countries and literally just go up to the building where you're supposed to have concrete and you could break it off with your hand. The rebar isn't the kind of steel or whatever it's supposed to be. It's not the quality it's supposed to be. And this is going on wherever they've built something. So a mild shaking might take down Beijing. I don't know. Maybe Beijing's got better quality, but it was scary just watching that thing. I'm thinking, man, and they've invested their whole lives in these things. The Chinese have gone into debt up to their eyeballs to buy anything so they could have something. But they have a communist government. They won't let them have anything. They'll take it away from them. Anyway. So the cities of the nations fell. Great Babylon came to remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And that's another story. Then he mentions in the passage the stars of heaven fell. Okay. Now he's not talking about little stars, because there's billions of them. And if they all fell, well, most of them are bigger than the earth to begin with. I mean, our sun is like what? How many times is it? Anybody know? I can't remember now. Yeah, I can't remember. It's. I used to know, but I don't remember it now. It's thousands of times bigger than our planet. Look at Revelation 12:3. And remember, in every one of those accounts, we read about these stars. And then we read about it in the sixth seal. 12:3, we begin there. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. We know that one of the definitions of the word star can be an angel. And he's referring to the host of heaven here, the heavenly host of the angels. And it says, and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And that's another story too. But look at verse 7. Okay? He just told you about these stars. And remember, every account said that the powers of heaven would be shaken. He's shaking them all right. He's shaking them out. And this is not the third heaven either. They've already been cast out of the third heaven. This is somewhere in outer space. And it says, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. That's why in the last 10 years, I have taught that every angel that was going to fall has already fallen. They fell in Genesis 1:2. They had fallen, they just haven't fallen to the earth. Just like Lucifer hasn't. He's fallen, he's Satan, but he hasn't fallen to the earth yet. But this is where it happens. This is where they hit the ground. Boom! I mean, they're coming here because they got nowhere else to go. You're going to see here, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon fought at his angels, prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. They've already been kicked out of the third heaven. Now they're kicked out of the second heaven. Oh, good grief. Talking like Muhammad there. He taught there were like 7 or 9, I don't know. Anyway, so there was no place found. They're kicked out of the second heaven. And kind of spiritually in this age, he's already in the first heaven. He's the prince of the power of the air. And that heaven is where the birds fly. Where you've got a spiritual presence there. But he's being cast down to the ground. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He's cast out into the earth. And his angels were cast out with him. Now, here's one of the things that's throwing me a bit. We have this account, but we know that in the middle of the week is when Satan is cast to the earth, because that's when the son of perdition reveals himself. Okay? It said, then shall that wicked be revealed, and that's when it happens, in the middle of the week. I am not so sure that these angels show up at that exact time. They could. They could very well show up. But not what most people don't think about. I don't think hardly anybody that's ever discussed Revelations ever talks about this point. And it's the point that you see in every sci-fi series and picture you have ever seen is an invasion. We never hear, we always got, the Antichrist and the false prophet. Like there's only 2 of them. Well, there's only the 2 that may show up originally, but there is an entire third of the host of the angels, these fallen angels, are coming down here. Why? They've been cast out into the earth. They come with him. Now, when they show up, if they show up in the middle or they show up toward the end, they're going to show up. And they are going to enslave the earth. When you've got more power, what do? You insert your authority and you enslave the earth. When Jesus Christ comes back, he's fighting more than just mortal men. I mean, we're fighting them one last time, I guess. I just don't know if it could be in the middle that they show up. When he shows up, since they're cast out at the same time. But that sixth seal just prior, I mean, I don't know what kind of time span we're looking at. It's almost like the sixth seal is taking you back and saying, now 3.5 years and here we are, we got martyrs. See, like I said, it characterizes that time frame. Okay, you get what I'm getting at? Okay, I hope I'm not confusing you because I'm a little confused myself. But all right, look at verse 14 to verse 17. So after all that, earthquake and all that stuff going on, it says, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. The topography of earth is going to change. One of the neat things we studied in Job was there's a hint that at the bottom of the mountains there's riches. Well, there's not going to be any mountains, man. He's going to take a whole mountain range and flatten them out. I mean, whole islands are going to disappear, and probably new islands are going to appear. But he says he's just going to level the mountains. Well, those riches will now be accessible. What we can't get to right now, which, the only reason we don't dig under mountains for gold is because it's not cost effective, to go and dig under mountains. It's like digging just putting a train through the mountain is rough enough. But digging under them, but that's where he says that gold is, and those riches are all still there. The earth is not depleted. It's got enough. It's got enough oil, probably last 1,000 years. I'm talking about the kind you burn and use. It also has. You got to understand, he's going to not only change it by his very coming, but he's going to put energy into it. He's going to change it. He's going to take the curse off of it. And the only reason why something runs down is because there's no energy being put back into it. And God is just not going to mess with this thing till he comes back. That's the reason why everything's falling apart. And you say, well, it's a climate change. Well, yeah, okay, sure. Things are running down, but they're only running down because of sin and because the Lord hasn't come back to put some energy back into it. I mean, when he gets back, you might have rain 1 hour in the morning and then 72-degree days. I mean, perfect weather. There's no reason to believe you won't. All right, look what he says here, verse 15. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and then he mentions every bondman, we'll get back to that, and then every free man. So out of, we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 groups there, only one is kind of on the bottom. That's the bondman. But notice how these characters have survived all the way up to the end, because this is Advent. They're still there, man. They've hunkered down somehow, and the rich have ran to their bomb shelter or whatever they've done, and they're still there. But look what it says. Hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. There's going to be darkness just before his coming. And I think it'll be the darkness you can feel. But I think once they realize what's coming, when he hits the ground, he'll hit the ground in right there before Jerusalem on the mount at the right of the Mount of Olives, and from there, I mean, he's just marching and destroying his enemies, and they're going to be running and hiding. The first army he runs into of 200 million is at Armageddon. And that's just north of Israel, or north of Jerusalem, and in the plains of Megiddo. That's where he'll meet that army. He will decimate them. We will decimate them. And at that point, all these kings and whoever's in, the ones that are controlling everything are running for the hills. Anywhere they can hide. There's no place to hide from him. No place to hide. He says we'll be going in through windows. I mean, Joel talks about us climbing walls. I mean, we're going to be super soldiers. Super soldiers. He said we can fall on the sword and get right back up. We're immortal. You can't win against that, and you can't win against somebody that can find you. So don't feel bad for them. They've been cutting off people's heads for 3.5 years. Don't feel bad for them. And said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Funny how they know it now, or they know it then, who they're up against. Somebody's preaching. Somebody's saying it. It says, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? That's a good question. So let me see here. I kind of I worded this. You have the Antichrist showing up, world war, worldwide famine caused by a worldwide drought, fallen angels literally invading this planet, an earthquake that will topple every major city on this planet, flatten mountains and remove islands, and there's even more we haven't even got to. And then to have the Lord come back with great wrath at the end of it. Not good times. Not good times. The thing that got me there is every bondman. Okay? So, the ultimate worldly kingdom of the woke. I mean, this will be the greatest kingdom of the woke that they could possibly ever produce with the devil's help. And they still got slavery. You still got slavery. You've got it mentioned in, look at Revelation 18, verse 13. That's why, when people talk about slavery, you got one group, all they want to talk about is like one group. One race. Are you kidding me? It's all over the world, and it's every race. Now, they may be particular to it or given to it, and they can look that up on their own. But slavery is not something it shows up in Genesis, and it hasn't gone away yet. And it's not going to go away. Listen, there's indications that it'll even carry on in the millennium, because God's going to do some payback, where they sold Jewish children for wine, and they've sold them for whatever they wanted, whatever they could sell them for, and God's going to sell their children. And when you read that, you realize who you're dealing with. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I will repay. And he's going to. I would rather be a slave in the millennium than in the lake of fire. So, but look at Luke 18:13. I'm sorry, Revelation 18:13. What do I keep saying? Revelation 18:13, which is 18th verse, 3 6s, and verse 13. And there's a whole list here. He's talking about the merchandise that can be acquired through Babylon. In verse 10, he's talking about the destruction of Babylon. But he's going through the whole list. The merchandise, notice that the first thing on the list, the merchandise of gold, verse 12. That's why we're probably going back on some type of gold standard, because in the tribulation, gold is the number one thing they want. And then he mentions silver and precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple and scarlet, and all that goes down through there. And now he gets into continues the list in verse 13. He gets down to, what do we call those things? Herbs, spices, yeah. Cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil, fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves. Okay? Slaves. And the souls of men. Dr. Ruckman pointed out, he said, look what's last on the list. Look what's last of importance to anybody in this world. The souls of men. And that's the truth. Because if they cared anything about your soul, they'd tell you about the Lord, wouldn't they? All right. So verse 16, he says, it said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. So when the Lord returns, many are literally going to be scared to death. because the rest of them try to hide themselves. The ones that encounter him when he first gets here, he scares a lot of them to death. I mean, he literally scares them to death. They die of a heart attack. And there'll be nowhere to hide. We already read this passage in Luke 21:26. It says, men's hearts failing them for fear. So if you think the Lord's not going to look scary, he is. He's going to be terrifying. And when they see him, and that's why you want to be behind him, not in front of him. Because the ones that are in front of him, when they see him, men's hearts, they're just going to die. They're going to just die right there, scared to death. It takes a lot to scare somebody to death. It can happen, though. The last thing is, verse 17, it says, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to provide it, or shall be able to stand, provide it. I don't know what I'm reading. I looked up the word great, or the phrase great day. And it's found, we'll see, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times. And one time it didn't apply to this day. But there are 4 times that it did. This one is part of it, and 3 others. Zephaniah 1:14 says, the great day of the Lord is near, it is near, and hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord, and the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That's in Zephaniah 1:14. Jude verse 6 says, and the angels kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. He hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Then, of course, Revelation 6:17, we just read that. For the great day of his wrath is come. Revelation 16:14, but they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth, of the whole world, to gather them to battle of that great day of God Almighty. You know, one of the things that I make it a habit of teaching, because it's very, very important that you understand the greatest day on God's calendar. Because he's told you 4 times. The great day on his calendar is the second coming of his Son, Jesus Christ. Now, that's not going to be everybody's great day, but that's certainly going to be ours. We place importance on the rapture because we want to get out of here, and I'm in agreement with you. Let's get out of here. Let's vamoose and let the world do what they want to do. But the actual great day on God's calendar is not the rapture. It wasn't even the first coming. It's not the day of Pentecost, and it's not the crucifixion. In fact, the crucifixion was not a great day. It wasn't Good Friday to God. I don't know where they get that. But the great day is when his Son finally recovers the kingdom that was lost, and he recovers that thing. It says the kingdom of this world shall be the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ. So the greatest day on God's calendar since creation is that day. He calls it that. And I am one that look forward to that day too. I really do. You can only watch so much of this and realize that, man, it's not getting better. The world's not getting better. The world's behaving worse. And as long as you have sinners, and as long as you're going to have corruption, no matter what laws you put in place, no matter what you do, this thing goes downhill without God. It just goes downhill. It always will, but it's getting worse. You know, I think when you had Christians that were praying, and Christians that believed a book, you had God working in there, and they had decent lives. They had peaceful lives. And that's fast going away. That is fast going away. We are just the last remnants that it hasn't kind of taken us yet, but it's getting there. It's getting rather dangerous even to just live in this country. But it could be more dangerous than it is. All right. Anybody got a question or comment about what we covered? Anything? Anybody see anything I didn't? Probably a lot, but all right, we will pick up chapter 7.